Okay, we're back for a rating climb. Now we're in 1500. We'll try to get to 1600. We'll see how that goes. Let's jump right in. 1+0 on Lichess. Okay, first game, Kaniyi. We're going to go e4 and trade in the center. Develop pieces. We'll try to stay not too behind on the clock. I know sometimes I tend to fall behind in these 1+0 games, so we'll try to stay up on it. Okay, our development's going fine. This knight pin to the queen is annoying. Do I want to take the knight first? I think I don't want to take the knight first because I actually like the idea of black taking my knight. Opens up the line of the rook. So that's pretty cool. That's not a great move. Oh yeah, this is going to be painful. I'm just trying to calculate. I mean, obviously there's queen check, there's rook takes pawn, but I don't see the killer blow yet. But with the knight coming back, the knight took away that square the king had to escape from, so black sort of put themselves into a bit of a mating net there. Okay, so first game down. That's good. 1+0. We'll keep this train going. Kev Alexander. All right. I think today we'll try to mix up the opening sometimes. This time we'll do a Sicilian, and I don't have a lot of knowledge in the Sicilian in terms of opening theory, so I generally just try to not blunder something crazy in the opening and develop my pieces, get a decent position, and we'll see how that goes. All right, we're going to go a bit barbarian style. Fracture the pawns. I don't love what white is doing. White's moving their pieces, the same piece sort of over and over again and neglecting developing on this side of the board, which is why I feel like I'm already doing quite well. I could just win a pawn. I think I will because there's more to that, and that is that this knight is overextended. Probably wise. That's probably wise for white to do. Just get a trade of queens. Oh, nice. Nice, I missed that. Okay, so I think pawn forward. I actually don't mind going king takes because it breaks the pin. Now I don't have to worry about some knight business. That's a double pawn. I would love to trade that for a healthy pawn. Okay, let's start this pawn move over on the side of the board. Try to create something. You can go knight takes. Now king back. Okay. I don't want to go into a mass trade mode yet. Ideally, really? Maybe get fancy with it. Try threatening rook check. Okay. And then what if I go pawn up? Check. I'm guessing I'm going to get flagged here. So let's just not get flagged. This is a fork. It's actually a pretty devastating fork because at the end of it, I also take the rook. Oop. I probably should have just taken the knight because knights are so tricky and there was no way I was going to be able to stop all the checks. Had to go into a super pre-move mode to pick that one up, but that was a close game. I'm going to try to not be behind on time in every single one of these games, so I'm not having to do that at the end. But at least I was in a winning, or so, at least it was a better position for me, so I do like that part of it. We'll try not to just win games on time alone, because that's pretty lame. Okay, I'm liking this opening for black. It's very equal, but we got plenty of space to work with. I feel like with this type of opening, you want to... I'm probably going to end up castling king side anyway once I get my bishop developed, which is maybe now a good time. So I was considering barbarian attacking. It's still available to me. Yeah, I feel like this will end up losing a piece. I'm just trying to calculate. There isn't anything fancier. Yeah, that's even worse though because the knight's not defended. And now in the end, I don't really need to go crazy barbarian mode. Here I'll probably just castle, get my rooks in the game, and trade down when I can. Here, yeah, it's going to force a pretty big concession in terms of king safety. Already, this is looking pretty bad. White's down 2 pieces. It's going to look bad. But it's not just that. It's also the position. So it's going to go very badly for white very soon. Probably rook here would have been a little better to counter threaten. Okay, we'll keep moving. Keep moving up. Rorschach 54. Try to stay up on the clock. Just get the bishop outside of the pawn chain. Then develop the d-pawn so that my bishop can always retreat, and I often will play this a3 move, or sort of out of habit, really. This is a nice square I'm seeing now for my knight, especially when he moves his light square bishop off this diagonal. It really frees this up. So there's this common idea of just snapping this and then abusing this pin, because this bishop also, so now I have queen, bishop, rook all on this pawn. It's a lot of pressure. And then this knight is pinned. He can break the pin like he just did, but that's a very committal sort of compromise. And I'm already going to sort of begin to go barbarian mode, because there are just a lot of weaknesses in his position. And if I go a queen check, I can maybe just go bishop takes pawn, follow it up with bishop takes here, or even actually, does this work? Not quite. Not quite. Maybe I start with bishop check, because now he loses, and maybe if he'd gone queen there, but it wouldn't have mattered, because if he went queen there... Oh, wait, what am I thinking? I totally missed this move. So I don't think he loses then, at least not right away. But we're going to win another pawn, probably pick up this pawn at some point. And now we're threatening this queen check. Now the rook's in the game. We can do it, or we can trade down. Actually, this is mate. What am I thinking? Let's not overthink that. Mate is... When you can threaten checkmate, I think that's going to be the best move in the position. Okay, play another Scandinavian. Keep the queen on the outside. Develop that c6 pawn. Always have a way out. This bishop move is not terribly good, at least not on the surface. It blocks in the development of white's queen side. The bishop can't come out. This is not strategically also very good. White had to make a number of committal moves. The king is now quite vulnerable, and the sharks are about to swarm. I'm going to get bishop, knight. Already I'm considering knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn, pawn takes. Okay, so we trade a bit. He doesn't have this. He can do it. And after check, pawn block. Okay, I don't think that's right. Oh, okay, maybe just knight back. Threatening knight takes pawn. Okay, queen here. Threaten the pawn. And rook block. A rook here doesn't work. This doesn't work because of knight takes. He has to take with the rook. Queen takes pawn. Yeah, honestly, at this point, let's just trade down. I'm fine with that. With the exchange and a couple pawns. I probably should just consider where to put the rooks. I kind of had this idea. So I like this pawn move. I like this pawn move. Basically, just kill his dark square bishop. Put the rooks on the 7th. Force some trades. Maybe I'd be greedy. No, let's not be greedy. Let's not be greedy. We're totally fine just trading down, picking up a few more pawns. Pin the bishop. Let's even go clean kill. Give up the rook for the pawn. And queen somewhere. Oops. Probably should have been a little bit better about that, but it's okay. Yep. Basically just gotta pick a side. Who do I want to queen? If I want to queen this side, then let's just pick a side. All right, 15 or 50 or so. Let's try to get a few more in. C. Embodo. Okay, Queen's Gambit. I'll often meet the Queen's Gambit with C6, so that if the Queen's Gambit, or since I'm declining it, yeah, but it's funny. I play C6, but I often don't want to recapture with the C6 pawn because it weakens this B5 square. So I'll often end up taking away from the, or sort of, not taking towards the center, which is a bit odd looking. I think he could probably play, I think maybe there he should have rushed in, which is a little counterintuitive to take like this, but this type of structure works very well for black, I find, and it keeps a bit more dynamic play for white or for black's pieces. And I'm happy to take the trade here. Knight takes knight, pawn takes. I'll attack the knight, send it packing. My bishop looks good. Maybe one day, just castle. Maybe I should have put my other knight here. I think that would have been wiser. And let's just get the queen in to make a threat. I'm going to go here. He's going to go queen here probably because he's just going to be worried he's going to get mated. And actually, no, he can't because he drops the bishop. Yeah, he couldn't do that, which is kind of interesting. Maybe pawn first. I'm really loving this idea of crashing through. He doesn't do it. Okay, maybe I take. Can I crash through now? Maybe not yet. I feel like I've missed a few ideas that maybe were a bit more direct. Yep, but what if I just bump you, send you back? All right, maybe I can just like triple on this square. Yeah, you can't give that up just yet. I'm not going to give that up just yet because we're coming through on this square. Okay, checkmate. Nice. Back to the board. Luigi Moskosov. Okay. 1600 rated player. Trade queens. Develop pieces. Make threats against this pawn. It's always good to make threats in the opening in bullet. That's a very weird move. I mean, I should be capitalizing on it, but sometimes when you see a move that's so odd in bullet, it's not really worth your time to think too much yet. Just trust that the position will punish them later for playing like this. You don't need to go too crazy. I think already there's this idea of you sack the rook here, give a check, the king's going to have to move because there's no decent block, and then you pick up the knight with the bishop. So you get the trade of two pieces for the bishop. He can play something like pawn forward, but he's giving up a lot for that idea. He gave up a lot for that idea. Maybe I offer the trade. I probably should be... I think the best way to take advantage of this is to try to find a way... Oops. Is to try to find a way to punish the fact that black's rook is so poorly developed. I guess now, after this trade, black can play rook here. Maybe that's what they have in mind. But actually, all these squares are like weirdly covered very well. I'm going to get my king in the center. And then work towards what? What do I want to work towards? Maybe this passed pawn is just too good. If I can find a way, yeah, I think black, or sorry, white, no, black needed to be a little more energetic. They needed to make a little bit more counterplay with their rook. If black can take out this pawn, it would be very good for them. So my king needs to come over here and make sure that this pawn goes down. Okay. Probably what I should have been doing also was pushing the pawn through. There's a weird like ladder staircasey thing you can do where you can, push the pawn onto one bishop diagonal and then use the other bishop to displace the king and sort of walk the pawn up the board like that, and would have forced the sacrifice of something. Okay, giving up the bishop prematurely for the knight. I feel like this is theory, but in a bullet game, I'm generally okay I'm happy when I see that, because if we do go to an end game, the bishop, or I should say that the bishop pair will be pretty nice for me. This line looks scary, I would say, for black. Already I have in mind, there's a classic checkmating pattern of queen takes and then rook mate, because the bishop takes away the g8 square, which is a nice mating pattern to know. Okay, this person's a relatively new account. We're closing in on 1600. So far in this rating climb, we have one loss and the rest wins. Mostly playing 1+0 now, just because it's a little faster to get through this phase, but maybe later we'll also move to 1+1 or 2+1. So we have a little bit more time to comment. A lot of these positions, I don't really have time to go into every little detail, but the main ideas, at least, we can talk about those. Here, all my pieces are doing very well. Yeah, what would I say? White's going to maybe try to threaten a pawn push in the center. I'm sort of waiting a little bit, kind of using the fact that I'm way up on time to maybe force white to make a committal move, but I don't think there's anything wrong with this type of sequence also, of just trying to crash through. And this bishop move is kind of like a nothing move. This is really just a, I don't know, am I going to take a knight? Probably not, but it just means that I can keep my clock at a significant lead. And so already I'm doing pretty well on the clock. This bishop's pretty poorly placed. I'll probably just send him right back. And now by that move, white committed the pawn, and so it gave me a square. Dark square bishop's also dead in the water. I don't even really need to take it because there's nothing for the dark square bishop to do. My knight's going to come in, queen, threaten this square. White's pieces in general were kind of shifted over to the queen side, so the king was starting to get a little vulnerable. Maybe I could start to mount an attack. Although it was quite a close position, it probably wasn't going to be anything crazy. Okay, queen's game again, another queen's gambit. So here I will have to take back with the c-pawn, but now what you'll find is that in these positions, often you then have to play a6 to cover this square that if your c-pawn had still been there, you wouldn't have had to play a6. So it saves you a little bit of time. And also this light square bishop is blocked in by this pawn. I think in this position, maybe I just trade so that I can, maybe use this pawn advantage to pawn storm through. And my idea is reuniting. I guess I have to take here. Okay, bit of a calculation thing. The knight can take the pawn eventually, and the bishop can also take this pawn, but the intermediate move was that my knight can take the bishop with check so that the bishop won't take my b pawn. And then I probably am not going to castle. I want to get my king in the center and now just challenge. Maybe just challenge the two files. I don't really think there's a way. Maybe I just go king here. And then rook here. He can go knight check. Is that dangerous? Not really, because there's no way to force my king away from my rook. Alright. King here. I did this whole thing so that I don't have to necessarily trade rooks, but now my king covers this back pawn. Bishop's doing a good job. And now I'm going to try to find a way, hopefully find a way to win a pawn. Although white's playing very well. Probably there was better there. Ooh, that pre-move is not so great. Get the king, I mean that was awful, but the hope was to not drop a piece or not drop the exchange and then try to push that pawn eventually through, maybe to get a queen. But it was really good play by my opponent in the last game. I was not able to get much of an advantage. Here we're going to do the King's Gambit. I think this is just a straight up sacrifice line. I'm already sensing that black is going to really give up everything in this game, and as long as I don't totally go in the tank on the clock, this should be pretty straightforward. Already here I'm seeing lines of taking here first. Now his bishop is going to fall, but also even if the bishop moves, I have bishop takes pawn threatening mate. Here I think I start with this and now take the pawn, threaten mate, and I'm covering this square. Yep, but this is not a happy camper. Maybe I bump the rook first. I want to get the rook off the line so then I can... Oh, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? I had queen takes pawn this whole time. Yeah, this is a nice tactic, a nice idea as well. I mean, pretty common theme of already here, this defense is not sufficient. The bishop is pinning this pawn to the king. So this pawn can just be taken. This is a mate in two, and I totally missed that. Luckily, he didn't go for the queen trade. We pick up the win, get to 1600. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.